Hello and welcome to That Booty, the channel where we talk everything yoga and spiritual. And today we're going to be talking about guidance dependency. So, as somebody who's being chosen for a spiritual path, I know that there are a lot of pitfalls you can experience, especially when you don't have the proper tools, knowledge, or guidance readily at your disposal. I know when I was a teenager, I made a lot of missteps that I probably would like to avoid if I had the opportunity now. But we all tend to get to a certain point in our journey where we learn to ask for help or guidance. And we hope that it's from people who are knowledgeable enough themselves to provide the correct guidance and, people who have our best interests at heart. So once we get to that stage where we're asking for help from spiritual people, or perhaps finding our own ways to guide ourselves, many of us turn to using tarot cards or pendulum or another type of divination. It gives us a sense of comfort and control that we didn't have while navigating the chaos that preceded it. And this feeling may have an effect long term that isn't as helpful as we would like. So if we become attached to the sense of knowing that these practices give us, we are now engaging in behavior that hinders our spiritual growth. And once this happens, we're becoming what I like to call guidance dependent. So what is guidance dependency? Guidance dependency is when you give away your power to readings, astrological forecasts, and other types of predictions. While these things can be tremendously useful and helpful when used in moderation as a tool to help you better understand and navigate the energies that are to come, it becomes detrimental once you feel you need them in order to move through life. Many people start feeling stuck, like they can't do anything until they've consulted, a psychic or a reader, or they've done a reading for themselves. You can see how this can become a challenge. But even worse is when you start ignoring your intuition or suppressing your intuition, and you forget your role as co-creator of your own reality. So take a minute to let that sink in. You are the co-creator of your own reality. And while you may be able to discern certain energies in order to navigate them with a little bit more confidence, you're doing yourself a disservice if you become solely reliant on external sources of guidance. Also, predicting the future, even if it's completely accurate, can come with its own complications. If you're one step ahead of a miracle, you're blocking its path. We aren't meant to know all things. There's no lesson in that. But there is a comfort in being told what to expect, or given the inside information on how somebody feels about you or something that you're going through. Even guidance on whether we should hold on or just give up on a situation. It feels good to have that hit of dopamine that we receive when we feel that the situation's kind of sorted, that we can determine what the next steps are going to be. But deep down, we know the answers already. And continually asking creates a rift between us and our intuition. The relationship we have with our intuition is very intimate and very fragile. If you start doubting your intuition, she becomes unstable, unreliable. And if you question her enough, she's going to stop speaking up altogether. Wouldn't you? If somebody kept questioning your guidance, would you keep giving them advice? Would you keep trying to help them? I don't think so. Most people would just leave it at that. So the more you keep questioning your intuition, the more she's going to say, you know what? I don't want to help this person. And you're going to become even more dependent on these external forms of guidance. So you need to nurture your intuition, show her you trust her, and she'll open up more and more and prove herself trustworthy if you give her the chance. But what if your intuition's telling you to get a reading? That's fine. I actually love getting readings and pulling cards for myself. But the key is everyone's favorite spiritual buzzword, non-attachment. If you get a reading, see it as a general guideline of what you might expect, and use it as an opportunity to get in touch with your inner self and determine what the best route is for you. I mean, seriously, if you're not taking these readings as gospel truth, but as general guidance, you're fine. If you're not using them to validate your feelings or your actions, total ego move, by the way, but you know, we're all human, it happens. And if you're not using them to justify or control the actions of another, you're golden. You really have nothing to worry about with a reading every now and again, or pulling a card every now and again to get in touch with your spirit guides or your inner self. The problem comes when you are now guidance dependent, when you need this external source of guidance in order to feel at ease. So what are some signs that you are guidance dependent? Sign number 1, you have trouble making decisions without consulting your source of guidance. You might find that you pull a card to determine whether or not you should text a friend, or you have to call and see if you should go out, you know, with your sister-in-law. You really shouldn't have to ask outside sources for so many things. So if you find yourself stuck at an impasse for every little thing that you need to do, you are likely facing guidance dependence. Number 2, you often find yourself asking the same questions over and over again. And this is often a sign that you want to feel either validated or that you don't trust the situation and you're looking for an out. So that brings us into the third sign that you are guidance dependent, and that is guidance that is in conflict with your intuition or your internal narrative sends you into a tailspin. So it's hard to say sometimes whether it's your intuition that's telling you the guidance you're receiving is incorrect, or if it's your ego wanting things to be a certain way. But if you get guidance that's in conflict with what you want to believe or with what you already believe, and you're sent into a tailspin, you are completely guidance dependent. Because if you have an internal knowing, an inner knowing, no matter what anybody else says, you'll know it. If you're seeking for someone else to come in and affirm that, you're again doubting your intuition, causing that rift in your relationship between you and your intuition. So guidance that sends you into a tailspin is definitely a sign that you are guidance dependent. Sign number 4, you're going broke. You're spending money on all these readings, and you just can't stop. That's just a sign of addiction, unfortunately. And probably if your bank account is hurting because you need constant advice, you should reconsider how you're soothing yourself. The 5th sign that you are guidance dependent is that you tolerate situations that are unpleasant, uncomfortable, unhealthy, or unsafe because you've been led to believe that there's some type of payoff. A lot of the times this happens in romantic readings where, oh, your partner is going to come through, give him time, give her time. It's not what it seems. And maybe that's true, but you need to listen to your intuition, because even if it's the right person, they might not be treating you the right way, and you don't have to put up with that. So if there's guidance that's encouraging unhealthy situations or behaviors, and you're listening to that and putting yourself in harm's way, you are definitely in a dangerous situation. And I think it would be best for you to reconsider how you're getting your advice. The 6th sign is that you try to force an outcome based on a reading. Because a reading says something's going to happen a certain way, it's not happened yet, you start trying to make it happen. With every fiber of your being, every step you take, you're fixated on making something happen. The 7th sign is that you can't access your source of guidance, or when you can't access your source of guidance, you feel panicked or abandoned. If you can't get your reading, if you forgot your tarot cards at home, if you don't have a pendulum, if you can't log into your favorite psychic service, you feel uneasy. That's withdrawal. The 8th sign that you might be guidance dependent is that instead of talking to people about how they feel, it's more natural for you to ask or consult the cards or a psychic or whatever source of guidance you use. So instead of asking your friend how they feel about a situation or a disagreement, you first will turn to your source of guidance, which is actually now, if you're at this point, it's not only creating a rift between you and your intuition, but you and your personal relationships. The 9th sign that you are guidance dependent is that you're always thinking about when you're going to get your next hit, when you're going to get a fix of guidance. Sometimes you might even not know what you're asking. You might not have a question. You might not really need guidance, but you get a reading or you pull a card anyway because it's become a habit. And lastly, last but not least, the 10th sign that you are guidance dependent is that you know you're guidance dependent and you don't know how to stop. So most of the time, you don't need to go through the whole list. You know when you've gotten to the point where you have become reliant on readings or either given to you by an advisor or self-performed readings. So you know what's up, but how do you stop? The good news is you don't have to stay this way forever. There's hope for the guidance dependent. You just simply need something to replace that hit and get your fix. If you get your guidance online, you could deactivate your account. You could change your password to something really difficult and disable automatic login. But ultimately, spending time with yourself is the way to do it. So take a walk, meditate, and cultivate that relationship with your intuition. And if you do that, instead of seeking external validation and guidance, you will no longer be one of the guidance dependent. Namaste.